Pretty much every woodworker I know uses one of these random orbital sanders. They're very common and they work pretty well if you know how to use them. But they can also be frustrating if you don't know what you're doing, and far too many people don't know what they're doing. I know I didn't when I got my first random orbital sander, but I've learned a lot over the years, and in this video I'm going to share that knowledge with you. These next few minutes are going to make your shop life so much easier. It's important to understand how one of these things work. Not only does the disc spin, but it also orbits in a small elliptical pattern. Those two simultaneous motions are designed to ensure a random scratch pattern, because in theory, no part of the abrasive travels the same path twice during the same rotation. One thing you may not know is that some sanders are made to orbit in small circles, while others are made to orbit in larger circles. The most common orbit, or stroke size as they call it, are 3/32 and 1/8, but you can get 3/16 and 1/4. The smaller the orbit, the finer the finish will be. The larger the orbit, the faster it's going to remove material. As you can imagine, there are real benefits to both of these options. Ideally, you want a sander with a large orbit for coarse grits and a small orbit for your finest grits. Unfortunately, most consumer level sanders are only available with a 1/8 inch orbit. If you want more options, you have to go with higher end sanders like 3M or Mirka. But if you have the budget, it is definitely worth looking into. Now that you know a bit about how these things work, let's start solving some of the common problems you might be having with yours. Random orbital sanders were designed to reduce those big circular swirl marks that were left by the spinning discs of the old rotary sanders. But a random orbital sander can still leave tiny little swirls behind called pigtails or spirals. These really stand out when you put on a finish, especially a stain, and there's several potential causes for these. It may be that a bit of the abrasive grit from your sandpaper came off and it got stuck beneath the disc. Sawdust can also sometimes compact into hard little lumps, and these can create swirls under the disc. So keep your sandpaper clean by using a sander with good dust collection, or better yet, attaching a shop vacuum. This will also make the job go a lot faster. I'll show you that in a moment. If dust collection doesn't solve those pigtail problems, get better sandpaper that's not going to break down as you use it. For fine grits, I love 3M's Cubitron 2 sandpaper. It's the best in the world in my opinion. I'll put a link below the video if you want to try it out. Just try a small pack and see how much it changes how you work. For coarse grits though, I've been using Duragrit carbide sanding discs for several years. They're steel discs that have little chunks of tool grade carbide on the surface. Those are not going to come off, and they're going to last many, many, many times longer than standard paper discs. Keep in mind that these are only available in coarse grits, so they're for leveling and shaping, not for fine finish sanding. But they are fantastic. I highly recommend trying at least one of them out. Maybe the 60 grit or the 80 grit. I'll put a link below this video. Another cause for spirals is just sanding too fast. Remember, the disc isn't just spinning, it's also orbiting. It's going to leave little circular scratches. The key is to leave thousands and thousands of these things so they all just blend together. If you move the sanders side to side too quickly, you're going to stretch those spirals out and make them more noticeable. So sand slowly, taking about 15 to 20 seconds to travel a foot, rather than scrubbing back and forth over the same area many times. And finally, don't skip your grits. If your 100 grit leaves a few spirals, the 120 is going to take them out. But if you skip from 100 right up to 220, you're going to have to sand forever to remove the deeper 100 grit scratches, and you're going to leave behind swirls. Sanding is actually faster and more efficient if you use several incremental grits instead of just 2 or 3. When you sand, especially if you're using a coarse grit, the dust can build up quickly. Some random orbital sanders have fairly effective built-in dust collection, others not so much. If you let that dust build up, you may get swirl marks as we discussed, but you're also surely going to clog up your sandpaper, and then it'll stop working well and you're going to have to sand a lot longer. A while back I tested this out by coloring the surface of a workpiece and then comparing the time it took to sand it clean with and without dust collection. The results were striking. Dust collection absolutely makes sandpaper work better. Clogged paper will also build up heat faster and wear out quicker. And you can even melt the hook and loop surface on the bottom of the sander that holds the paper on. More about that in a minute. Besides using a shop vac to prevent dust buildup on the paper, you might clean it from time to time with a rubber stick like this one. These aren't expensive and they can greatly extend the life of your sandpaper. I'll put a link to one below the video. This final random orbital sander issue was, I think, created by manufacturers that were seeking to solve a different problem. A lot of folks only have one sander, so they're constantly peeling paper on and off as they switch between the grits. To speed up the process and extend the life of the fuzzy backing of the disc, manufacturers started creating pads that just gripped less, and a lot of them have gone too far. If you pick the sander up at all while it's running to reposition, the disc is going to fly across the shop. Now technically, you should let your sander fully stop before you raise it off any surface, because if it's still spinning when you sit it back down, you can mar your work. But in the real world, people just don't do that. And even if you do, you've probably had a disc creep off the bottom of your sander a little bit, exposing part of the pad underneath and wearing it out. There's two solutions to this problem. The first is to get a hook and loop conversion kit. This is only a few bucks and it will transform your sander. It's simply a heavy-duty adhesive-backed Velcro-like disc that sticks to the bottom of your sander pad. Now you can install this by peeling off the old Velcro surface on your sander, but the easiest way to do it is to just get a sheet of some fine grit paper and without putting a disc on the bottom of the sander, turn it on and set it on top of the sandpaper. Sand off those little black nibs, and then you'll get a smooth surface that you can stick the new Velcro-like material to. Your sander is never going to lose a disc again. I'll put a link to the conversion kit below. Now, incidentally, those carbide sanding discs I told you about, they're obviously heavier than paper because they're made out of steel. If you buy one, it's going to come with a conversion kit because you're going to want that heavy-duty Velcro to attach it to your sander. Another problem some folks have, regardless of the initial grippiness of their sander's pad, is they wear out. Now, the biggest cause of this is just getting too aggressive with your sander. You can replace the Velcro material as I just explained, but you can also protect your existing pad by adding what's called a pad interface. These are very inexpensive. It's just double-sided hook and loop material with a little bit of pad to it. It goes between your existing sanding pad and your paper disc, so this wears out instead of your sander. By the way, the holes in these do not have to line up with the bottom of your sander. There are many holes in this to maximize the airflow, and that air and fine sawdust travels through the hook and loop connection between the pads and into your sander's holes. I'll link to them below this video as well. Also below this video, I'm going to link to another tutorial I made of some really useful tips that'll help you through the actual sanding process. I really think it's the best sanding tutorial out there. I highly recommend it. Now, one last thing. Does the world need another table saw safety device? It does if someone can come up with something truly better. Let me tell you how the Bow expandable push shoe gets it right. First, it's more compact. Other brands know that they're big and clunky for narrow workpieces, so they've made narrower versions of themselves. Bow combines multiple sizes into one device, expanding from 1 3/4 to 6 inches. These options, along with the detachable leg, make it more stable for a wider range of workpieces. But it also solves my biggest frustration with adjustable push blocks. They're usually a pain to adjust. I hate having to move those little sliding legs so I don't cut into them with the saw blade. The Bow version's clever expanding design is faster and easier because not only do the legs move on their own, but because I can see down through the block from the top, I can easily and confidently position it no matter where the blade is. If you've ever used one of those other pushers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Being able to see where the blade is under the block is a big deal. The bottom is super grippy, even when you get sawdust on it. Plus, there are 3 rear catches that can be set to any depth without fiddling with knobs. I especially like those when I'm using the push shoe on its side at the bandsaw. In fact, this is not just for the table saw, it's for multiple tools. As the saying goes, The best safety device is one you're going to actually use. If it takes too long to set up, you aren't going to bother. That was the problem I was having with other ones. I don't have that problem with the Bow expandable push shoe. I'm a blade guard user, and I think you should be too, but not everyone has a saw with a good blade guard. Devices like this don't just keep your hands away from the blade, they secure and guide both parts of the workpiece straight through the cut to prevent binding and kickbacks. It's far better than a simpler push stick. Bow is a small business located in the tiny town of Corfu, New York. It's run by a couple of guys named Bill and Keith who have great ideas. It's exactly the sort of business I love to support. So keep yourself safe. Check out the Bow expandable push shoe.